Okay, hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial series, two-part tutorial series on making procedural butterflies. And in this second part of the tutorial, we're going to be looking at exploding some kind of object. I think I'm going to do a bomb, like a cherry bomb, and then the cherry bomb explodes and butterflies come out. So it's going to be a butterfly bomb. Alright, so bear with me. Okay, so in the previous video, we set up our procedural butterflies as Ty actors, and then they kind of float around and flap their wings, and that's what they do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to abandon this previous exercise. We're going to utilize some of these components from this flow, but we can probably get rid of the sphere. We don't really need that anymore. And we're obviously going to keep our butterfly and some of these other components. So we're just going to keep this flow in here. We're going to continue this flow, and we're going to make the bomb. So the bomb itself is going to be another actor. It's going to have a wick, and it's going to have some sparks. So it's going to look like it's burning, and then it gets to a certain point, and then it's going to inflate and then explode and then spawn all the butterflies. So that's the idea. So real quick, first things we're going to do is I'm going to bring over my layers. Oops. Don't want to dock that. Jeez. And okay, so I have my butterfly on its own layer. Just want to make sure. All right, cool. And I'm going to create a new layer and call this bomb. Set that to current, and we're good. So first things first is I'm going to model a quick bomb. So the sphere, I'm just going to do a sphere. Let's say it's like about that big. I don't know. And you know what we could do is I'm just going to hide my butterfly for now. So I don't need to see that anymore. And I'll go ahead and zero my bomb out. Cool. And we'll leave it at 25 seconds, I guess. You can make it however dense you want. I'm just going to go ahead and model this real quick. So I'm going to toss an edit poly modifier on there. And I'm going to go in the side view and select the top faces. And I'm going to extrude those out a little bit. Make like a cartoon cherry bomb. I'm going to select the vertices, and I'm going to select just the top ones. And I'm going to use this little tool here, and I'm going to planarize the vertices there to make it a flat top. And then we can continue modeling this thing. So I could turn my faces back on, and I'll go ahead and inset these a little bit. Maybe we can make a hole for the wick. And I'll just go ahead and extrude that down a little bit. Should be good. And then I'll select my edges, and I'll grab my edges here. And I will connect these two segments. Okay. And then we'll toss on a turbo smooth modifier. Boom. And there's our bomb. Looks great. And then now what I'm going to do is model a quick little like wick looking thing. So splines, line, and I'm going to do smooth, smooth, and maybe just like something like that. Maybe modify it a little bit. That should be cool. And I'll go ahead and enable this in render and viewport just so we can visualize how thick it is and stuff. So maybe make it about that thick. That's cool. Yeah. Nice. And then we're going to have to make something for the end of the wick to spawn some particles. And there's a bunch of ways we can do this. This is just one quick way. So this tutorial doesn't end up being like 2 hours long. I'm going to just going to kind of do this as quick and simple as possible. So I modeled like a little sphere, and that sphere is going to be where the sparks, like the little sparks, are going to fly off of. So we're going to spawn some sparks on this guy, and we're going to separate all these components out from our TyActor object. So what I'm going to do is probably just going to go ahead and link the little, actually I'll probably label these things. So this one's going to be the fuse tip. Let's just call this the wick, and this is the bomb. Okay, and then I'm going to select and link the fuse tip to the wick and the wick to the bomb. Cool. So now anywhere the bomb goes, all that stuff is going to go with it. Sweet. And then what we're going to have to do here is, since TyFlow doesn't really, I'm not going to, as part of the actor, I can't include a spline object, so I'm going to have to convert this to an editable poly. But before I do that, I might just reduce the segments a little bit, maybe do like 8 segments. Should be fine. Reduce the interpolation a little bit. I don't need like too many polygons. But we can go back and modify all this stuff later. So just for now, I'm just going to convert that to editable poly, and that should give us what we want. So now I'm going to go back in helpers and TyFlow and create my TyActor object for the bomb. And we can go ahead and align the actor icon to the center of the bomb. Cool. And in the TyActor object, I'm going to select the bomb, the wick, and the fuse tip. Cool. A couple things more we need to do. I'm going to add a couple TyProperties. So we'll set the simulation group for the bomb body itself to 1. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and paste it on the wick, and I'll set it to 2. And the fuse tip, I'm going to paste that, and I'm going to set the fuse tip to 3, just so we can separate this stuff out. Okay, and this one we're not going to do an animation because it's going to take too long. What we could do is, if you wanted to have the wick look like it's going down into the bomb body as it's burning or something, you could do like a path deform, and instead of like a spline object like that, you could just model a cylinder and then use the path deform modifier, and then just have it curve along a spline, and then you can adjust, you can animate the length or the position along the spline that the wick cylinder is, and then you can kind of animate that moving down if you want. Stuff like that just can take a little too long for this tutorial, so just know that you can get a little bit more experimental and just do more with this if you wanted to. But for this tutorial's sake, this is going to be good enough for now, so we'll just leave it at that. So we're not going to set up an animation or anything for the bomb itself. We're just going to simulate stuff on it. So first thing I want to do, just to make sure this little guy is working, is let's go to TyIcon. We'll just stick it here for now. Yeah. And I'm going to birth, let's just do 1. So at frame 0, let's just do 1 for now. Set this to geometry. Position icon. And we'll pick our icon. And then in the position icon, I'm going to set it to pivot, so it'll just spawn 1 in the center. That's all I want it to do, really. And then we'll go ahead and choose our actor and just make sure everything is populating correctly. So remove that, select my actor, and go add selected. Cool. And we're going to have to set up materials later, but we'll do that in a minute. Nice. So from our actor, we want it to be a PhysX shape. So I'm going to drag one of these guys out here. And because basically at first we want it to be affected by gravity. So we can launch a couple of the bombs out, or we can drop them from the surface, or whatever you want to do. We can just have them fall, land on the ground or something, and then explode. We might just kind of do something simple like that. So that's what we're going to do for now. So if we do this though, all of the pieces disjoin, so the all three pieces have to be bound together. So I'm going to do a PhysX bind, do rigid joint for now, enable collisions. That way the bomb and the wick and everything stays together. Perfect. And from here we're going to do a few property tests. So we're going to test for all of our groups. So this is going to be group 1, and we can rename this bomb, right? And we can go ahead and copy and paste that, and we can rename it wick, and this will be simulation group 2, and we can copy and paste that again, rename it tip, that'll be group 3. So just like how we set it up in our modifiers on the object itself. So now we could do all kinds of stuff from here. So let's start with the tip, I guess. That would be the easiest one. Maybe I'll just kind of reorder these. Cool. So the tip is first. So let's do some stuff with that. So from the tip itself, we don't care about seeing that little sphere, so we can basically just turn that off anyway. But what I'm going to do is I want to spawn some objects from that tip, the location of that tip. So we don't really care about seeing the geometry of the tip itself. We just want to use it as a point to spawn some stuff. So let's go ahead and connect up the tip group to the spawn here, and I'm going to spawn probably per second at a rate of maybe 20 or something. And we can choose a shape, so we can toss in a shape operator. And for this, I think we'll just keep it at the little triangle for now. I'm not sure what I want to do with this yet. We might add some more detail to it, but okay. But what we can do is actually, you know what I might do is I'm going to bring this out into its own event. So it's going to spawn. We can even get rid of this. We don't need to see that. It's going to spawn a shape, and I might just like do a little rotation on it so they're random. Maybe a little bit of maybe some spin on it. I'm not really totally sure what I want to do with this yet. And I know I want it to be a PhysX shape, so I want it to interact with the ground. And let's put a force on it. So when let's do like a wind, let's do an up force. And we'll set the wind to something like, I don't know, 0.4 or something. And then we'll do a little purlin noise, so maybe like 0.5 on the noise. And we'll see what that looks like. Timing set to continuous. And I forgot to do a little display operator in here, so I'm going to just display geometry. So now you can see the wick has little sparks coming off of it. That's pretty cool. And what I'm going to do here is do a time test. And maybe like it's set up to be like 5 frames or something. So after 5 frames, they're going to be deleted. We'll set delete continuous. Cool. There you go. And for the spawn, I think the timing, I'm going to have it be by particle age. So once one of these bombs are spawned, it's going to, let's say like the wick is going to go for like 30 frames, which is like a full second, and then it's going to, and then we'll continue with the whole sim for exploding it and stuff. So it should fall, and the wick should fire for 30 seconds. Perfect. Okay, let's try to organize this a little bit better. So what I can do is kind of just drag this stuff up, maybe over here. Okay, let's work on our wick next. So basically our wick's going to be really simple. We're just going to do a little time test. Actually, you know what I could do is, let's just make a new one. Time test. It's going to be 30 seconds. Sorry, 30 frames, because that's the length of time we're spawning them for, so we'll keep all this consistent. So the range will be 30 frames to be a full second. After 30 frames, I'm just going to probably just delete the wick, I guess. So we'll do delete on entry. Okay. This is going to get kind of messy here, but that's okay. Kind of keep it as organized as we can. All right. And then for the bomb itself, it's going to be a little bit more complex. But so basically, I want to do another time test, so I might just copy and paste this. At 30 frames, I want the bomb to do something. And what I want it to do is basically I'm going to turn off PhysX. So I'm going to use a PhysX switch. I'm going to deactivate it. Oops. Deactivate it, and then I'm going to turn it into cloth. So I'm going to do a cloth bind, shape to cloth, and I'll leave all this stuff the way it is for right now. I'm not totally sure what I want to do with it yet. And then I'll do modify bindings, and then set timing to continuous. And once this timing is set to continuous, I'm going to set the inflation force to be like 0.5. Actually, maybe we'll do like 0.2, and event age ease in. I'm going to do like 0.1 or something, and we'll do inflate a whole cloth. And we'll just kind of see how that looks. So the bomb's going to drop. The sparks are going. At 30 seconds, it should stop. Okay, cool. So let me hide this stuff. We don't need to see any of that. Oh. Okay, so we do need to see the bomb there. Cool. So the bomb drops, and it goes bloop. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So let's say at like around 10 frames, we'll do another time test here. Particle age, and we will do like so after 30 frames, well let's have it kind of bulge out for 10 frames, so that's 40. I don't know, maybe we'll do like 50 frames. I don't know, let's just see how this looks. And then maybe I'll just, like, for the sake of the brevity of this tutorial, I'm just going to delete it. You guys could, feel free to experiment with tearing the cloth so you can still see the cloth. So like the cloth will, like, you can have it inflate and rip the cloth open or whatever. In this tutorial, I'm not going to really go into that level of detail. I might do that for the final one. I'm not totally sure yet. But regardless, what I want to have happen is after 50 frames, so it gives a little bit of time. After 50 frames of the particle being alive, the wick's burning, the wick dies out and bulges the bomb and then explodes. I mean, that could maybe last a little longer. Maybe we'll make this like 55 or something, or 60. Really, it's just all up to you. So that's a full 2 seconds of the bomb activity from like when it drops to when it turns into cloth and then explodes. So one thing left we got to do is add a collision modifier for the cloth. And maybe we'll go ahead and put in a deflector. So under space warps, we'll do a deflector and toss in a deflector object in there. Make it pretty big. I don't know. And then with our deflector selected, we'll add selected. And that way the cloth should interact with the ground. There it is. All right, cool. So now what we could do is, I'll just like increase the size of this guy a little bit. Add a couple more bombs just to test and see how it starts to look. Couple things left I gotta do, but let's say 0 to 30 frames, we got 5 bombs. And maybe I want to spread them out just to make sure they're not touching each other when they spawn. Let's just see how this works. Yeah, see they're touching each other instantly. So instead of pivot, I'm going to do surface. So it'll spawn them randomly on the surface, and then I'm going to do a spread. There you go. And I might just do a rotate random just right up here as well. So it kind of rotates them randomly. Let's spread them out a little bit more, like something like 6. Looks like they actually might be binding together somehow. Oh, maybe let's just do a rigid glue and bind siblings. There you go. So now they act independently of one another. Cool. And if you don't want to rotate them random like that, you could do horizontal. Yeah, so that looks kind of a little bit better. And one last thing we could do, maybe in our collision test down here for the bomb itself, maybe make that like 0.2, just so it doesn't stick to the floor. And then one last thing we could do for this is particle physics. Let's see how that works. Obviously that's going to be a lot more processing intensive, but what we can do is like see how this works. Maybe like do an absolute radius of like 0.01. Kind of helps them like bounce off each other just a little bit, and we can always increase the particle bind solver a little bit. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention that I did off screen real quick is in your PhysX settings, you have to set all your simulation groups 1, 2, and 3 here. That's really important, or else the wicks and the little fuse tips will just fall. They won't simulate correctly. So you have to set those up there. And then I'm just going to increase my solver settings for the cloth to like 20, maybe 10. And that does have an effect on the way the inflation force works. So you might want to like increase your inflation a little bit. But they are still sticking to the floor, which I don't want them to do. So that's something I'm going to have to play with. Maybe I'll do this like 0.5. Okay, so I turned off my collision for right now. Just because it was sticking to the plane, and I can increase my solver steps, but for right now, I'm just going to turn it off, and then I'm going to add a little bit of lift force to the modify bindings operator. So float force, I'm going to do like 0.01. So what that'll do is, as soon as they like start inflating, they'll lift up a little bit, and then they'll explode. That's kind of like a cooler effect anyway. Sweet. Okay, so we're just about done with the bombs themselves. Now I'm going to, from here, we can start to incorporate the spawning of the butterflies. So what I'm going to do is, let's do a spawn operator. Put that at the end here, right above the delete. And that's basically going to, and then we're going to basically utilize the old flow here of the butterfly and just utilize some of these components. So basically what I want to have happen is I'm just going to delete this birth operator. Actually, let me just see how this looks. So from the previous tutorial, oops. Let's do once offspring 1, and that's going to basically spawn 1 per face. This might blow up my computer. This is something I haven't really tested yet, but we'll try it out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, so there's a shitload of there's a shitload of butterflies. Kinda works though. Okay, let's do a couple things here. Okay, so in our spawn operator, we're just going to spawn once. We're going to spawn 1 offspring, and we're going to reduce the spawn percent by like, let's just try 1%. Let's just see what happens. So the bombs fall, they drop, they puff up, and they explode, and butterflies come out. I may want to reduce the age a little bit. Maybe let's go back down to 50. See what that looks like. Poof. So that's kind of cool. Awesome. So that's working pretty well. I like that. So now what we could do is set up our materials. We'll just add a couple more materials, and let's see how this thing's starting to look. Okay, so I got my material window open. I'm going to add everything to the same multi-sub object material. So let's set the number to 7. Sorry. Okay, so we'll do the bombs, the wick, and the sparks as different materials. So I'll copy this one down here. So actually, I'll just take this guy here, copy it down here, and we'll call this the bomb body. The bomb body, will just make it like a, I'll make it like a red material or something. I don't know. And we'll play with that a little bit. All this stuff is, could be, obviously can be further refined, but I'm just kind of doing stuff quick and dirty for now, just to get the sim down and make sure everything looks good. So I'll copy my bomb body material down here, and this will be the wick. And the wick will be, just make it like a black. And we can add maybe like a rope texture to it or something later. That'd be kind of cool. And then this one, oops. This one will be the material for our sparks. So maybe we can like use little like those little triangles that are being spawned, we can make those square planes and put in like a little texture map to them or something that make them look like sparks. Something. So let's just make that yellow for right now. And modify that stuff later. So 5, 6, and 7 are the ones we got to play with. So let's set up that stuff. So in sim group 3, the tip we don't care about, the wick. Well, actually, sorry, the tip is where we're spawning the sparks. So let's say for where they're spawned, I'm going to add a material ID operator in here, and the sparks themselves are ID 7. Okay. And then the wick, I'm going to shift drag material ID channel down into this event. The wick is going to be 6. And the bomb body, let's say we'll put it right here. Let's see how that works. And the bomb body is 5. Cool. Now we turn off our edge faces. We should see the bomb drop with the wick at the right color. They puff up, explode, and we got our butterflies. Sweet deal. That's cool. Now there's a ton of stuff we can do with this. I might, of course, like tweak the materials and make sure that, the sparks are spawning properly and like the inflation is working the way that I want it to, and just add more detail in the materials and stuff. And I don't know, maybe play with the animation of the butterfly a little bit. But I think, let's do a quick recap because this is a pretty extensive flow. So let's take a look at exactly what we did. So the first event, we're basically just birthing some bombs, right? So we can procedurally generate like however many bombs we want over a certain period of time. The bombs are being spread out slightly so they don't really spawn into each other. And the bombs themselves are actors made of multiple parts, which we set up different sim groups using the TyProperties modifier on each object within the TyActor object itself. So we were able to separate all those out. So for the tip, we were using this tip location to spawn the sparks. And then basically we spawn them. I could probably put in the shape operator, I might vary the scale of them a little bit. So I might do that in a little while. And I might actually make them planar and then give them like some kind of, material that looks like a spark or something. I don't know. Or you can do like a million different things, however you want to go about it. You can make them just maybe particle trails. So you can use a TySplines operator to create little particle trails. So that's an option too. Yeah, so you could do all kinds of, we put a couple spin forces on them and just give me a little bit of realism, even though it's a little bit cartoony right now. So of course there's opportunity to add realism in each one of these events. And then the wick itself, we're basically just like separating that out so we can delete it after a certain number of frames have passed. And then the bomb itself is where we're after a certain amount of frames, we're converting it to a cloth object. We're inflating it here. We're using a particle physics operator to to sort of limit the collision between the objects. That all that stuff could be tweaked. And then in the modified bindings, we're basically inflating it and giving it a little bit of a float force. And then after a certain amount of time has passed, we're deleting the actual bomb, which in that case you could potentially in the cloth operator, or you can use modified bindings and explode the cloth open so you see the cloth itself. So it kind of like shreds the bomb open. If you want to do it that way, that's cool. And then basically we spawn all of the, and then from there, we're just deleting the bomb mesh itself. but at this, simultaneously we're spawning the butterflies. So, but from the previous tutorial, if you um, haven't seen the previous tutorial, um, I definitely recommend going back to see exactly how we set the butterfly up. It's just another actor with multiple components, and we did a similar um, process of separating out the butterfly body from the wings and or from the actual bones that make up the wings or that control the wings. So yeah, basically, those are just being spawned. They kind of like the rotations are a little bit randomized. We play an animation. We set up right out the bug body so we can materialize it, and to be able to hide the actual bones for the wings, and set up a little collision on it to make sure it doesn't run into the floor. And that's pretty much it. And we have a little bit of a force there, and the force controls kind of makes the butterflies kind of like meander about, so all that can be controlled. And so from here, I'm probably going to tweak a few things and then render out the final pass, and then we'll be able to see what it looks like, and I'll put it at the beginning of this tutorial series. um, I'm not going to cover render settings because this tutorial is almost 40 minutes long. So the second part of this tutorial is almost 40 minutes long, so I'm gonna cut it short here. If you guys do want to see my render setup, like the actual process of setting up the materials, like actually adding texture maps and more refined detail and lighting and cameras and stuff, leave a comment in the comment section below, and I can probably put something together about that. If you guys are not super familiar with, I don't know, rendering or using FStorm or whatever it may be, or using texture maps or something. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comment section below. If you got any questions or anything about our particular setup here, let me know if anything was particularly confusing, or if you have any questions about any particular event or something. Um, Otherwise, I appreciate it if you smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already to the channel. I'm going to be continuing to post more tutorials in the future, and even some more game development process videos and stuff that I'm things that I'm currently working on outside of using TyFlow for VFX kind of stuff like this. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.